that at some point, common sense will prevail. But we see no sign of that in this action today by the U.S. administration.
Retaliation. That is the Canadian response to U.S. tariffs on Canadian steel and aluminum. $16.6 billion worth of tariffs on U.S. goods. And with that, the old bromance between Justin Trudeau and Donald Trump has turned into a trade war. But where does it go from here? What should Canada's next move be? To find out, I am now joined by the former U.S. ambassador to Canada, Bruce Heyman. He's in Chicago, former Conservative interim leader and the member of the Prime Minister's NAFTA Advisory Council, Rona Ambrose in Calgary, and the former leader of the NDP, Tom Mulcair in Montreal. Great to have an illustrious panel like this on a massive news week. I got to start with you, Ambassador Heyman. Donald Trump has justified these tariffs as Canada being a security concern with steel and aluminum, a security threat. Is this just a pretext for more protectionist action to come against Canada?
Completely. This makes no sense whatsoever. But he has this legal loophole, and I think the Prime Minister and the Foreign Minister explained it well, that the U.S.-Canada relationship from a defense perspective, there's nobody better that the U.S. has as an ally. And so this in and of itself is a ruse. It's a pretext to allow them to squeeze the Canadians and the Mexicans a little bit more, either on NAFTA or just be plain hostile. But it's not going down well. And by the way, this is not a partisan issue in the United States. This isn't a Republican-Democrat divide. This is actually a Republican-Republican divide back at home.
All right, Rona Ambrose, I want you to weigh in. You called it on the program last week. You said there's going to be a trade war. You said Canada has to hit back. I guess the big question is, where does it go from here?
Well, I think the underlying question is, we have to hit back. We've done that. I fully applaud the federal government for doing that, for the action that they took yesterday in retaliating against Trump's aluminum and steel tariffs imposed on us. But the looming question is, will any of this really make a difference in terms of the trajectory that Trump is on? When you follow what he has done over the course of the last year, I mean, everything he has threatened, he has followed through on when it comes to trade action. And it's not just in Canada, but around the globe. So he's rewriting the trade agenda for his own interests, and it's working. And so that is a big problem for the rest of us, and that includes Canada. They are a large economy, and they can withstand a trade war longer than we can. And so my concern is, I hope we can continue to stay at the table. Yes, retaliation works, but we have got to find a way forward on NAFTA with the Mexicans and the Americans that makes sense for all of us, because we cannot sustain a protracted trade war.
Tom Mulcair, I want you to weigh in. Andrew Scheer, the Conservative leader, called this a failure of the Trudeau government. What's your view on this?
Well, all politics is local, Evan. On June 18th, there's a very important by-election in Chicoutimi riding where there are 4,000 aluminum workers, and they and their families are very worried about this. So I guess it's to be expected that the Conservative leader, trying to position himself in that by-election, would find fault primarily with Mr. Trudeau. Of course, Mr. Trudeau can be blamed for a lot of things, but Mr. Trump's personality is not one of them. I read that tweet, and I still don't understand what the last question is when he says, do timber and lumber in U.S. ? I don't even know what that's supposed to mean.
The Trump tweet.
The retaliatory measures, the reciprocal measures that we're putting in place should start right away. That's the only thing I don't understand. Why wait a month? Mexico has acted right away. The U.S., of course, acted right away. That's what we're reacting to. But why would Canada take a full month before putting those measures in place? That's not clear.
Ambassador, where is it heading? So we're all trying to figure this out. Is there any way that maybe before our tariffs kick in July 1st, as Tom Mulcair is talking about, Donald Trump, who's a political mood ring, you never know what he's going to do tomorrow, he changes? Or is this heading, is it escalating, it derails NAFTA, and this becomes a full-blown trade war? So,
look, I'm agreeing with Rona. Don't underestimate Donald Trump because it's working for him. And so my best guess is, and I hate saying this, I think he's going to do something to disrupt NAFTA. I don't think he wanted this deal. Because if they wanted this deal with the Prime Minister calling and saying the president of Mexico and I will fly into Washington, we'll roll up our sleeves, let's get this done. And the phone call he gets back is, you got to abide by sunset. And knowing that that was a no-go zone, I think it was an indication that he doesn't want to do a deal. And that's the problem here. Everybody's doing the dance, everybody's doing this. But the reality is maybe we've just been going down this path where Donald Trump, for political reasons, because it sells well locally in Ohio and Pennsylvania and Michigan, et cetera, to say I've withdrawn from NAFTA. Sorry, these guys couldn't do a deal I wanted them to do. And he's making Canada and Mexico jump up and down. And to do that, he's actually making his case back to his base.
Yeah, well, Rona, that's pretty pessimistic. I mean, that means NAFTA could be toast, and that could mean this could just be round one of an escalating trade war.
Well, I mean, it's what we were talking about this week, that if Trump can't get the deal that he wants through NAFTA, then he'll get it through direct, unilateral, aggressive trade action through the Commerce Department, and he's doing it to countries all over the world. So Canadians can't think we're special because he's doing it to a number of countries right now to deal with what he sees as unfair trade practices in other countries, which is ironic. I'm starting to worry that he is not going to get what he wants through NAFTA, because guess what? Trade deals are supposed to be win-win-wins. And so if the closer we get to midterm elections, if he can't get that big result, and he's probably starting to realize he's not going to get it, then I think we become more pessimistic about getting to an agreement.
Throughout the last election campaign, he proclaimed that it was the worst trade deal in the history of the United States. So he has to leave somehow with a win. Now, in his case, given his comportment in this thing, if that means breaking something that has actually, had problems with it, there's no question, but there's also a way of arguing that it's been very good. If you're a free trader, you see it as something essentially good. But Mr. Trump's never been able to articulate what the problem was. So now it's a sunset clause, which essentially means that the trade deal is worthless and completely at the beck and call of any congressional deal that has to be made in the future. The thing would lapse within 5 years, and then we'd be right back into the insecurity we're in now. So frankly, the government is right to refuse any discussion of a sunset clause, because look at what we're going through now with the current ability to withdraw. But the insecurity is hurting workers on both sides of the border, and it's going to start to hit home. It's not gherkins that's going to change this thing, but it is essentially the breakdown of the ability to have that seamless border.
Yeah, it's going to hurt Canadians. I got to leave it there. You all have illustrious resumes, but now you've got to add Trumpologist to it, because that's really what it's come down to. Ambassador Heyman, Rona, Ambrose, and Tom Mulcair. Boy, what a massive week, a critical week in the Trudeau government. Absolutely.